Alright, welcome back. This is M-Dog. And we are once again at Bear Lake, doing one of my favorite things to do, which is fish for carp. We're at 5563, obviously. I will show you that on the map here in a second. And it's always an interesting time when Cocos and Cream are working at Bear, which is a lot of the time, by the way. But they seem to do an interesting job of catching, especially grass carp and black carp. Just pulled up to this spot so you can see with me if it's indeed worth fishing here or not. We will take a look at what we get over the next few minutes and kind of discover how it's going together. So we are at 21 clip. If you're not familiar with this spot, this is where we are, casting towards the 3.5 hole, although with the 21 clip we're not getting there. We're pretty short. In fact, I think about a 35 clip actually gets you to that hole. So worth trying a longer clip every once in a while, but 21 clip is the much more common clip to be used here at this spot. Let's look at the baits we're using. The first two rods you'll see are the same, and just to keep it interesting, I'm trying to, especially when we're fishing at Bear or Old Berg for carp, I'm trying to bring in a little bit more of a lower level or mid-tier carp setup as our third setup. But the first two, this is what we typically use for carp fishing, which is the Megara on the Avalons, Kingfisher Avalons, or the Sage. I have two Avalons and a Sage. We are using 31.7 strength. 2.0 hook, and we're going with the Cocos and Cream 22 with Coco Cream White dip and Coco PVA. I'm using up some old Coco PVA I already had. If I was making a new batch, which we may need to do here in a second, I probably wouldn't do the crushed boilies, just go straight Coco and Cream additives. But we'll see. All the attention so far on the second rod. Now, we're starting off with the size 22 boilies, as I just showed you. This spot can be really interesting to try the smaller boilies as well. In fact, I think we will rotate two smaller boilies at some point while we're kind of seeing how it goes. If nothing else, maybe on this third rod. Kind of makes sense for the second. So this is the second rod. Again, same thing as the first. Exact same setup to a T. So 22 boilies, but we may want to try the smaller 16 boilies. So let's see how this goes. Oh, let's take a look at the third setup while it's overnight here. Hopefully the bite rate will pick up a little bit in the morning. So I'm using a regular Fortuna carp rod. So if you're, in your, I don't know, mid-20s and you're trying to figure out what to purchase to fish for carp, this Fortuna carp rod is definitely a good starter carp rod. Very nice rod. Has plenty of load capacity for you to grow with. And then on it, we're using the caliber 80. Yikes. Speak of the caliber 80. All right, getting this fish in. We'll continue to look at this setup here in just a moment. I think I'm going to keep all the same baits on this one, at least till we get through the early morning hours, and then we might rotate to a smaller. Do I still have dip on here, by the way? Yeah. Okay. We might rotate to the smaller boilie. All right, let's get this back in. This is the HSV. If I'm being honest here, I meant to put the larger caliber on here. This is probably... See, I think going with the HSV, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going all the way up to 23 kilo line. We're overloading it a good bit. I mean, it's fine, but I'm not sure we're getting full strength there. I meant to put the larger caliber on here, and we can switch it out in a second. But regardless, this is a setup we're using, so a little less strength, down to 22.6 on the leader, 22.5, 22.6 leader and lead core respectively. And then the same baits, a little bit smaller hook. Again, we don't necessarily, might want to have a little better bite rate on this one. And then we also have a little less strength, which honestly with silver, I mean, sometimes you can make more silver just getting a really nice bite rate with carp fishing compared to trying to hit the largest average of carp possible with the larger hooks or whatnot. So far, three really nice carp. Let's go ahead and make that Coco PVA real quick so that we can just put it right on when we run out. I've got a couple of older stacks, but we will eventually need this. I think at Bear, for the most part, I like to just go with, oh, this is the reason why. I can't remember if there's a fourth Coco attractant or not. Maybe there's not, and maybe that's why we had the crushed boilies on there. You know, one thing we could do is just put either biscuits or cookies. Never hurts to have that, or we could crush up boilies. We'll try biscuits though. Instead of crushing up boilies, we'll do it this way. And then let's turn that into a 10 gram PVA bag. Man, this middle rod is getting all of the action. I think we've had 2 fish on the middle rod and then just the one on the far right. Getting another nibble there, it looks like. Yeah, we're definitely seeing the grass carp come in, aren't we? And that's what you expect, grass carp, and you hope that to occasionally get a black carp, perhaps. But I'll switch this out to the larger caliber. I mean, really, the caliber HSV is the cheaper option. And I think you can get by with the HSV here at Bear because you'll have such a nice spool size. You just can kind of wear them out, even the larger carp. But the step up above the HSV would be something like the larger caliber or the Avia. Avia is a little pricier, but also a little better. But the caliber 80 is not bad either. So, and that's why I was going to use that one during this video tonight. But I forgot and put the smaller caliber on there, which is fine. I think this is a pretty common setup right here for people to have when they first come to Bear, if they've saved and prepared. I guess some people end up fishing Bear with Saber 60s or Alphas or whatever, but in terms of kind of having an ideal beginner carp setup, it would look something more like this. Although, again, I would argue maybe come down to 19 or, you know, whatever sizes are available, a little under that on the lead core, leader, and line. I was trying to see, so they have 11. Is there a 17 or does it go from 11 to 22? That's one thing I'll have to check next time at a store. I can't remember. It may be that it's worth putting this on there, even though technically with the HSV you're probably not coming quite up to that much strength on the line. But as you see, we've still got 187 meters of line on here, even with 23 kilo line. And I'm not even sure this is the thinnest mono line we could get for it. But over 150 meters at Bear should be okay in most situations. Make some apple cider between bites here. Nothing like catching those grass carp, which often involves very long nibbles. Yeah, so I mean we're just not getting full strength on the HSV with this size line. We can't even get it up into the red, so it'll be interesting to see when we throw the larger caliber on there what it looks like. If we can get another one this size or bigger. Hopefully we don't spend the whole video fighting a monstrous grass carp here on our somewhat undersized gear. But this is what you have to go through, especially spots like this where grass carp and black carp are so active. Is a lot of the fish are just going to take your line and run, and you just kind of have to be okay with that. They will eventually wear out. Is that also a runner? See, that first line, since we haven't caught a fish on that first line yet, it may have, my friction brake may be pretty low on there. If it is pulling line, I would say that's probably why. Just keep it nice and high so we got the rod doing some of the work to put some pressure on that fish. There's always a chance it will pop off the hook, but the less we move around, the less we have the rod down low, and the less often we are pulling against it trying to reel the fish in when it's pulling line, I think the better chance you have of just keeping it on there. All right, it's going to give us a little line here for a second, so let's pull some back. It really hasn't taken our line very far. It just ran a little bit, but again, we have such a nice spool on these HSVs. We've got plenty of time. So it has pulled it somewhere out here. If I remember correctly, I think it is the measurement that I've made in the past has been from down here across to here. And this is where if you have 150 meters or more, you are typically okay at bear. You may have to run a little bit to stay in front of it, but getting spooled isn't normally too much of a concern. So he's still going for runs, but he's not running as long as he once was. He's perhaps starting to get a little tired. These grass carp can just go and go, though. And on this setup, it's not even necessarily going to be a really big grass carp. Hopefully it'll be at least 15, 16 kilos, but we'll see. They fight really hard, so sometimes you pull it in and you realize it wasn't near as big as you thought it was. And these caliber HSVs have decent strength mechs. I mean, it is possible that we might be able to just lock it up and force it in, but I don't typically fish carp that way. Some folks do, but it can be really risky, especially if you're not used to doing it. I would love to set this rod down and increase the friction brake on my first rod, but that is a good way to lose a fish, so we will resist that urge. One thing that makes me think this fish isn't that large is that when I'm just feeling its weight, in other words, when it's not pulling, it comes in pretty quick. Not a lot of resistance. So we only get that big resistance when it's actually pulling and fighting against us. If you want to be really safe and not losing the fish, don't use your shift button to reel it in. But that also means for a fairly slow process of reeling it in. And I think it's worth the risk, for me at least, once I have gotten it to this point where we're well into the fish fight. And so at least the perception I have is that the chance that it's just going to pop off the hook, as long as I'm not doing something totally stupid, it seems like the chances of that happening start to decrease. Now, if we were using all three of our regular carp setups with Megaras, we would have already had this fish in. I believe. The downside of doing this, though, is that we're spending so much time on this fish, and this is the time of the day when the largest carp will probably come in. So we're missing out on some fish by spending this much time on it. All right, we're going to start getting a little bit more aggressive. See if we can turn its head this way and then just keep it coming for a while. Pulling it in the right way now. It is not a completely tired fish yet, though. So it's about, what, 35 meters out still? Maybe a little bit more. Don't expect it to go on any long runs anymore. It may pull a little bit here and there, but I think we've got it coming in the right direction. All right, moment of truth. Grass carp or black carp? Definitely looks like a grass carp. And did we hit the size goal of... Yeah, it looks pretty healthy, doesn't it? I was hoping it'd be 15 to 18. There's 19 and a half. Very nice. Very nice indeed. All right, so let's throw the larger caliber on there now. And we'll put that PVA we just made on there. See if we can do some comparisons. I don't think oh yeah, friction brake is down. Good. And no, this friction brake wasn't too low. Okay. Maybe it was the middle line that was getting pulled a little bit. Not sure. Or it could have just been, you know, grass carp. We're already getting another hit on that third line. So think about how much time we have not been rotating our lines and getting new fish on. So that's the difference. Like if you've got beginner carp gear barely getting by, the amount of time you spend on one fish, someone with in-game carp gear might have 3, 4, 5 fish in just from that one line, depending on how good the bite rate is. So it can really make a huge difference in terms of when you get to the end of a session, how much silver and XP you're making per hour can be greatly determined by that. I don't think we put PVA on this one, so let's not spend a whole bunch of time without PVA out there on a line. Again, we're just 21 clip right over the reeds there. And obviously, it already seems like this spot's pretty decent in terms of bite rate. So I would say it's worth checking out if you're looking for a good carp spot, especially at Bear. And I'm sure a range of baits would work here. The Cocos and Creams seem to be doing their job. They're targeting grass carp well, which means you will occasionally likely get some black carp as well. So another decent size one here. Finally got another point there. Apparently we're going to have to make a lot of apple cider if we want to continue to level up cooking. Alright, so here is... That's too small a fish. I was going to say another opportunity to see with the larger caliber. But this is a little guy. I kind of want to test the... smaller boilie size, which means I think we're less likely to get another nice size one on this line, but I want to see what the bite rate is like with the smaller boilies. The 005s. If you are looking for lures, I do sometimes make lures for people, but you will need to send me the mats. Coco. I'm getting pretty low, if not out of mats on mini lure stuff, and I don't really need to make in them anymore, so if you want them, just let me know. But you'll need to be able to send me the materials for them. I think one of those was a 10 out of 10. Alright, is this going to be a big one? Oh yeah, not really. So nice quick bite rate on the smaller size boilie. And still a decent sized grass carp. Yeah, especially during the day when the bite rate's going to slow down a little bit anyway, like the middle of the day. These 15 size boilies, or 16, whatever they are, might be the way to go. 16s. I know it gets a little bit complicated if you're throwing 22s on during the hot times, or like the real active times, and then switching them to 16s during the less active times. And maybe you just switch one or two of your lines. But I have a feeling that it will get pretty slow in the middle of the day on the 22 boilies. So if you start having a slowdown and you want to sort of jump start it, that might be the way to go. Let's see. Wanted the 6s back. I had been making people lures for boilies, or for glass bottles. But like I said, I'm just getting low on mats, so I actually need people to send materials if you're wanting lures these days. Ooh, okay. Pretty nice size one here. Had a little strength to him at first. 8.6. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. We are getting full use out of our happy hour here. Got lots of things going on. Yeah, with it going that slow, that means, and even with premium, that means it is expensive now to level up cooking. And I'm not sure, it might be cheaper to find I mean, it would be cheaper. It might be more efficient to find, one of these recipes and just keep making tons of those, because now the glass bottles are so expensive, waiting to get points on wine or apple cider. Although it's fine to have that apple cider because it is nice to get the bonus to XP with the tipsy effect, but it's still just so pricey. Oh, why am I having a hard time understanding this question? The Super Duty for my HSV. Hmm. So 12 fish, 33 minutes, but goodness, that this grass carp here took, at least 15 minutes to get in. So there was an unfortunate gap there in the fish we were catching. All right, so the 16 boilies haven't been as quite as active as I'd hoped they would be, although just having it on one rod like that is not a great way to test it. We probably should have put it on two rods for a bit during the hot part. Now we're kind of getting back into the later afternoon where the carp activity might increase again. We'll just go a little bit longer, by the way, on the video. Try to get through the early evening at least, just to see if any other nice grass carp come in, or a black carp for that matter. This definitely appears to be a grass carp or a black carp, the way it's nibbling like this. I'm assuming that black carp nibble in the same way that grass carp do. I don't know that I know that for sure. I'm not sure I've ever seen it do this, thinking it was a grass carp and then actually pull it in and it was a black carp. But I would think so. I mean, I think it's basically the same fish, just like a rare spawn of the grass carp is how it seems like it works. But we caught a couple commons, but I think we're mostly going to see grass carps in this spot. Unless we change the baits up, you could possibly target other things or open yourself up to other things by going with some different baits. Even just potatoes would be interesting to see the percentage of different types of carp you might get here. Yeah, that was in fact a grass carp. Another decent one though. Almost a 10-kilo one. Yeah, the quality of the fish so far has been really nice. This one is just a slow nibbler. Starting to feel like one of those spots that you got to be patient on at times. %83%. Wow, we're on a streak of points here. Holy cow. I'm not sure that we open anything else up until... Oh, we do get 85. I thought it was 90. Okay. Well, at least we have something we can move to at 85. Now, it's probably still going to need glass bottles. It's still going to be really expensive, but It probably has a better percentage on the tipsy bonus, so that's something, I guess. Something worthwhile. Well, let's, we'll keep going a little bit longer, but let's just see what ballpark. Again, the amount we made is going to be a little lower because of that long fight, but let's just see what the first little bit has done. 173. So, which, by the way, how much is that largest one worth? 36. So I don't know. This feels like a 300 silver per hour kind of spot, at least for the first hour, and especially if you are efficiently pulling them in on pretty decent carp gear. Of course, it could be a good bit more than that if you were to hit a trophy, but all right, again, this is the smaller boilie size. Another common, very nice. What would be cool is to see a black carp. I know they're here. I know folks are catching them mixed in with the grass carp, but I don't think they're like as active as they have been at some point. So you, on average, you may only see one or two an hour. So just given the limited time we're fishing here on this video, we may not get one. It's just unexplainable to me on how much more active the middle rod has been compared to the first rod. The only difference, and now first of all, obviously that just happens sometimes. The only other difference, though, is the, look at that crucian, is the leader length. This one's got a 45 centimeter leader, and this one has a 60 centimeter leader, and then our third one has the smallest at 30 centimeters, which when I'm first getting to know a spot, I will often do that and then start sort of changing around and see what impact switching up the leader size seems to have. On really well-established good spots at amber, sometimes I'll just go 60 centimeters on all three. But I do think it's sometimes worth playing around with smaller leader sizes. when you would hope that we might see a couple more decent fish before sundown. That's what you would hope. Maybe we should say 250 an hour is a realistic goal for your first hour at this spot. It does seem a little bit hit or miss at times. Especially on our first line. Good grief. $17 keepers, and we're not that far away from an hour. I mean, you really want more like 25 keepers, according to how good the value of, I mean, the average size is. But I'd say we still have some tinkering we could do to increase our performance at this spot. But it hasn't been bad. It's obvious that the carp are there. I don't know. The weather's been fine. I don't think it's an issue of weather. It'll warm up again a little bit more tomorrow, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference, I wouldn't think. Part of me just wants to recast the first line. I don't know if we had more than 2 fish the whole time on that first line. You hear people talk about some of these spots at Bear. Well, one of two things. Sometimes the approach is fish a spot for an hour and then rotate, right? Especially at Bear. Sometimes the amount of fish you catch in that first hour is a little bit inflated compared to if you stay for longer periods of time. But then other people, or maybe other spots, other times, people's experience is more like you go to a spot, it seems pretty good, and then you'll have like a 20, 30 minute just slow down. But if you're patient, it'll typically pick back up. And without spending more time here, I just don't know which one of those two situations this is. All right, so now we rotate back to the larger Cocos and Cream. Because this is, if we're going to have a black carp, if we're going to have 1 or 2 more nice fish, this is probably when it happens. Right before or right at sundown. then it can be somewhat okay overnight at times, but I think if we don't have something pretty nice by midnight, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Maybe they didn't like that biscuit PVA we put in there. This rod has been the real stinker. The real stinker. We are running out of time to see a black carp. Nice one. Yeah. Okay, so we end up with 20 fish. Nice little spotted bear. It's not quite as good as this spot or other spots a bear can sometimes be on the Coco stuff, but we are using the 22 size boilies. Some of the things that I would try if I was gonna spend more time. We end up at 217. If I was going to spend more time here, I might try using the 16 size boilies on all three and see if you might catch some smaller fish, but if the bite rate is just good enough to justify if you're also getting some of the larger ones coming in occasionally. And then the other thing is just to be patient. This spot might be one that requires patience, but it's hard to know till you just spend the time sitting on it. It wasn't a bad hour of fishing, but you want it to be a little bit better. I was hoping we'd get more and more bite, but it's well past midnight now. And yes, we may have the occasional fish come in, and it's even possible we'll get a late black carp, but the percentages do feel like they start to go down a little bit. All right, so once again, 55, 63, we're at 21 clip. The carp are definitely active here. It's just a matter of kind of doing some experimentation to try to get as efficient as possible. This hasn't been bad, though. I mean, it's a good starting point. The Cocos and Cream boilie and Cocos and Cream corn with Cocos and Cream dip and some form of Cocos and Cream PVA mix. As always, thanks for joining me, and look forward to seeing you again soon. See if we can't get another video this week. But if nothing else, should be around for some streams later in the week, hopefully starting Wednesday night if things go as planned. But as always, thanks for the support. Tight lines, everybody. Peace out.